You ever have one of those mornings where everything feels calm, like the world finally gave you a break? That was me, sipping black coffee on my porch, watching the mist lift off the pasture, thinking the only thing I had to deal with that day was a busted fence on the south line. And then, like a bad scene from a cheap western, here comes this beat-up gray SUV creeping up my gravel drive, kicking dust like it had a purpose. Out hops Marlene Hargrove, in 3-inch heels and a blazer so red it could stop traffic, waving a crumpled piece of paper like it was a search warrant. "You've got 30 days to vacate the premises," she said, full voice, right there in my driveway, with her 2 HOA board buddies flanking her like hired muscle. I didn't say a word, just stared at her, then at the paper, then at Duke, my old ranch dog, who was already growling low from the steps. Now, I wasn't shocked because of the eviction notice. I was trying not to laugh, because that land they were trying to evict me from, that was mine. I don't mean, like, emotionally mine or this land is my heritage kind of thing. I mean my name's on the deed. Literally. My family owned it long before their HOA dream homes ever popped up, and I still lease half the lots they live on. The irony nearly knocked me over. It all started a few months earlier when Marlene got herself elected HOA president. Before that, I stayed out of their meetings, didn't care what color their mailboxes were, or whether someone left a kayak too close to the garage. But Marlene came in like a tornado with pearls, trying to reshape the whole neighborhood in her image. Problem was, she thought my ranch was in her kingdom. The notice she handed me was laughable. Wrong address, no county approval, no legal signature. Said I was violating community standards with unregistered livestock, unsightly fencing, and paint that didn't meet the aesthetic guidelines. My fencing's been here since '65. My barn's the same green it's always been. But logic wasn't what she was chasing. Control was. I played along, pretended to be confused, nodded solemnly when she pointed at my goats and said, "You need a livestock permit for more than 3 animals." Greg, one of her lackeys, started filming with his phone like he was on some HOA version of Cops. Diane, the other, scribbled notes like she was prepping a court case. I could have ended it that afternoon. I had every lease agreement, zoning map, and legal boundary sitting in a folder labeled HOA Shenanigans. But something in me wanted to watch how far they'd go. So I let it ride. Next thing I know, I'm getting fines slipped under my gate in red envelopes. $3,000 for agricultural disharmony. A warning for improper driveway alignment. One morning I wake up to find a red X spray painted on my barn. That one came with a note saying it was a pending community review. They tried towing my tractor. Tried calling animal control on my goats. Even shut off my water, putting a tag on my spigot that said privileges revoked. That spigot draws from my well, dug by my grandfather. I rerouted the overflow right onto the HOA road. Turned their precious cul-de-sac into a creek bed. Marlene showed up stomping down the trail, phone in hand, yelling, "This is sabotage." I just looked at her, deadpan, and said, "Thought I didn't have water privileges." Then came the drone. Cheap little thing, buzzing over my pasture like a fly. I waved it off. Twice. Third time, Charlie and me Hawk decided he'd had enough. Snatched it midair and dropped it into the creek. Still recording. When I pulled the SD card, there were close-ups of my windows, my barn, even me shirtless changing a tire. That crossed a line. I marched into the HOA office, slapped the broken drone on the front desk, and said loud enough for the book club to hear, "Spying on private property is a federal offense. Next time, this goes to the sheriff." They started unraveling after that. But the kicker? An anonymous email. No name, just a PDF attached titled, "Operation Clear the Field." Internal HOA emails, all of them. From Marlene to her board. Laying out how they'd pressure me to sell, cut off my utilities, harass me with fines, and reclaim the land for the community. That was the bullet. I printed it, along with every map, lease agreement, and zoning certificate I had. And I invited the entire neighborhood to a meeting, not in their clubhouse, on my land, under my old oak tree. They came in droves. Some curious, some worried, some with lawn chairs and popcorn. Marlene tried to stop it, saying I hadn't filed for HOA assembly approval. I just pointed at the steel post beside her. Private property begins here. I stood up in front of them, folder in hand, and laid it all out. How my dad had leased the land to the developers years ago, how I inherited it, how the HOA's entire infrastructure clubhouse, signposts, trails, even their parking lot sat on my family's land. And how every fine, every threat, every attempt to evict me was not just invalid. It was a breach of contract. Then I read from the emails. Marlene's own words. Make life unbearable. Cut access. He'll cave. The silence afterward was heavier than thunder. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You and your board have 48 hours to vacate all non-residential structures on my land. You're trespassing." Pandemonium. Some folks cheered. Others recorded. Greg tried to spin it as a miscommunication. Diane just walked away. Marlene turned red, said she'd sue. I handed her my lawyer's card. Within a week, the HOA was gone. Their clubhouse cleared out. Their patrol golf cart parked with a for sale sign. But it didn't end there. While cleaning out their shed, I found a locked file cabinet. Inside, folders marked with resident names, fine history, bank records, even personal photos. A spreadsheet titled Compliance Leverage. It was a blackmail list. Plain and simple. I turned it all over to the county. Within 48 hours, a formal audit began. Marlene wasn't just disgraced, she was under investigation. The neighbors formed a new group. Nothing official. No fees. Just a few folks keeping things organized. They held their meetings behind my barn. I supplied the chairs. That weekend, we had a barbecue. Kids ran through sprinklers. Someone brought a radio. I grilled burgers until sundown, laughing with people who'd once been afraid to wave hello. That told me everything I needed to know. A month later, I carved a new sign where their old one used to be. Welcome to Silver Hollow Ranch, a free community. No bylaws. No dues. Just good neighbors and a shared fence line. And every so often, when someone asks what happened to Marlene, I just smile and say, she tried to evict her own landlord. Didn't ask whose land she was standing on. Thought she already knew. And that's how empires fall. Now let me ask you this. If your neighborhood started acting like a kingdom, who would you trust to wear the crown? Drop a comment. Let's talk about it.